In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about something that no doubt we've all asked ourselves. But my answer to the question that we've probably all asked ourselves might be a little different, maybe even a little bit controversial based on what we've been told about this subject. And what's the subject I'm talking about? Purpose. Finding our life purpose. I'm going to tell you a true story about myself. So, this is a question that I'd been asking myself all through my 30s. And then when I turned 40, I had an epic meltdown. My husband still affectionately refers to this as my midlife crisis because when I turned 40, it felt like the bottom fell out of my world because I hadn't figured out this one question. What is my purpose? What am I here to do? And I really had this really existential, couldn't even say the word, existential crisis about why am I here and what is the meaning of my life and have I done the best that I could with my life? And in a way, it really was such a disservice to myself. And here's why I say that. You see, in asking that question of why haven't I figured out what my purpose is, I negated everything that I had done, all the relationships that I had created, all the academic achievements, all of the life that I had lived up until that point, as if because I didn't have the answer to this one question, everything that had gone before it was meaningless. And it really led me to a lot of self-reflection, a lot of introspection about what is purpose and what is the meaning? And why do we need to have a purpose in life? Now, that actually would be a great point to start, is actually to define what is purpose. The dictionary says that purpose is the reason something exists. And I 100% agree with that we all need to have some reason, some meaning for why we are here. But what I fundamentally disagree with is the fact that it's one thing and that we have to have figured it out by a certain point in our lives. What we really should be thinking about, and how I believe we should be thinking about purpose, is that it's an evolution, that you're constantly becoming. One of my favorite human beings on this planet is my 5-year-old nephew, Tato. Now, he's 5. And so if I ask him, what do you want to be when you grow up? Which effectively is maybe the same question as what is your purpose? He has 2 answers for me right now at 5. Number 1, he wants to be Spider-Man. And number 2, he wants to marry Princess Jasmine from Aladdin. He's 5. I'm hoping, though, that by the time he's 25, that what he wants to be when he grows up will have changed, and definitely by the time he's 55. But effectively, when we ask ourselves that question, it's no different than me asking Tato when he's 5 what he wants to be and expecting him to have figured it out. Instead, we need to be looking at purpose as a constant evolution, a constant finding ourselves. We need to understand that purpose is something that changes based on the time in our lives, based on the season of our lives, based on the things that are going on in the world around us. I think also a key thing that we need to be asking ourselves, and something that I had never asked myself up until more recently, is what are my core values? Because I think that's a more important question than having this one answer to what is my purpose. Really understanding what's important to me. What do I believe? Who do I want to be as a human being on this planet? An interesting concept that I came across in reading is a Japanese concept called ikigai. And ikigai, loosely translated based on what I understand, is your reason for being. And ikigai is represented in, I'm going to take you back to high school math, in a Venn diagram. So it's 4 circles that represent 4 different aspects of your reason for being, according to this philosophy of ikigai. And what they say ikigai is an intersection of what you love to do, what you're good at, what you do that makes a difference in the world, and the thing that makes you money. And so, based on Ikigai, where those four things intersect, that is your reason for being. Now, fundamentally, I do agree with that, but I want to put one small caveat. I think as society, we've been told that purpose equals your job, purpose equals the thing that makes you money. And I want to just say sometimes purpose doesn't make you money. You can love doing things that don't make you money. Does that make that any less valuable or any less valid as a purpose? Now, I agree. Of course, we live in a world where you have to make money to live. But I want to argue the fact that sometimes your purpose and what you do for a living can be separate. I think of situations, for example, like you might love to coach, you might love to play soccer, for example, but you were never quite good enough to be a soccer player yourself. You're definitely not going to be good enough to coach a Premier League team. But does that make your purpose of wanting to coach a little league team any less noble or any less valid? A question to ask yourself when we're always equating purpose with what we do for a living and purpose with what makes us a living. I'd like to offer 5 questions that I actually think are the more important questions to ask yourself when it comes to finding what is your purpose. Number 1, most important question: what do you love? What do you love to do that makes you feel alive? What do you love to do that brings out the passion in you? What is it that you do that when you're doing it, time stands still? You're not even aware that time is passing. What would you do if money was no object? What would you do for free, even if you weren't being paid? That really is a great indicator for us of what is it that truly sparks us, brings us to life, makes us feel fully alive. That's the first question. The second question that I would ask is, what allows you or what makes you feel fulfilled? What is it that makes you truly feel that you're living your life? You see, so many of us are brought up to live other people's lives, other people's goals, other people's dreams, other people's expectations. And we fail to connect with ourselves and what is it that truly brings us to life. You know, when I went to university and my undergrad degree was in accounting. Now, I right now could not read a balance sheet or interpret a balance sheet to save my life. But at that time, I thought, this is what's going to give me a good job and good job security. So I'll study accounting. I hated every minute of it. And so when I look back on it, of course, there's never any wasted experience. But it helped me to understand the fact that sometimes we're living a dream that really isn't ours. So the second question to ask yourself when it comes to finding your purpose is, what is it that makes me feel fulfilled? The third thing to ask yourself when it comes to your purpose is a question of honoring yourself and your well-being. We live in this world of hustle and grind, and hustle is glorified nowadays. And yet it's to the detriment of our health, it's to the detriment of our mental well-being. And so in thinking about what is my purpose, it's really asking yourself, what is it that would allow me from a mental, a physical, and emotional, spiritual perspective, feel my most whole self? What would allow me to honor my mind, my body, and my spirit? So that's an important question to ask yourself. What would allow you to feel a sense of self-worth? What would allow you to achieve a life that you love without burnout? A fourth question to ask yourself is, What don't I like to do? What do I hate to do? Here's what I know for sure. In this lifetime, I can never ever be a medical professional. I hate the sight of needles. I hate just all of the stuff that's related to bodily fluids and things like that. So I can't imagine every single day having to do a job that involves that. Now, I love and appreciate all of the amazing people on this planet who've made it their life mission to care for us, when we're sick, to help us be well. And so I appreciate and I honor you, but I know that is not me. And sometimes knowing what you don't want to do is just as important as figuring out what you do want to do. Knowing what are your boundaries, knowing what are your interests, knowing what are the things that really are not interesting to you. So that's the fourth question to ask yourself. What don't I want to do when it comes to finding my purpose? And the fifth question to ask yourself is, what can I do in this world that makes a difference? Now, a lot of the time when we ask this question or we hear this question asked, we're thinking about things that are on a global scale. Mother Teresa and, the big names that we know who are doing big things in the world. But really, this question is about, can I make a difference in one person's life? Can I make a difference to one person in this life? It doesn't need to be hundreds, thousands, millions of people. Can you do something that makes a difference to one person? And so those for me are really the 5 questions that I feel are most important. And I think rather than trying to answer the question of what is my purpose, it's really answering those 5 questions. I also think that sometimes when we ask that question about what is my purpose and we're trying to find this purpose, the reason we want the answer to that question is because in some ways we want a guarantee that we want the heavens to open and the angels to sing and say, here you go. Here's the thing that you're here to do. And here's the way that we're guaranteeing you success. But here's what I know as well, is that you will never know unless you try. That action is what creates clarity. When it comes to finding your purpose, finding that thing that lights your heart on fire, that makes you feel fulfilled, that makes you feel like you're making a difference in the world, that allows you to honor your mind, your body, and your spirit, and the thing that you know you love to do, it ultimately comes down to you have to try. You'll never know you like or you don't like something until you've tried. That truly is your barometer is, did I try it? Did I like it? Is this something that I want to continue to do? Or, nah, that's not interesting to me. And I think too, we ultimately need to trust ourselves, trust our intuition, and trust our feelings. Connecting with, when I do this, whatever that thing is, how does it make me feel? And is this the way that I want to feel? It's not, purpose in my mind is not a job title. It's truly about you connecting with who do you want to be and how do you want to feel? Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I hope you'll join me for the next one. And until then, I want this to be a reminder to you that whatever your dream is, remember that you are worthy to be, to do, to have whatever your heart desires. I'm Sandra. Thank you so much for making me a part of your day.